Hey guys, happy Wednesday. I've got a few announcements for you. We are going to be in church this Sunday. It's going to be a little different. We're going to be outdoors, so have your parents, and if you're interested, you can look on the website and things like that where things are posted, and you can find out exactly how we're going to gather. As a result, now that we're finally coming back together, what we typically do during the summer months is we take some time off between the end of school and summer youth group. So we're not going to have youth group tonight, and we're probably not going to have youth group until the beginning of July. This gives me time to plan how we can safely meeting all the regulations and guidelines that the city has right now and things like that. But I intend to meet in person this summer with you, my brothers and sisters. Okay, I cannot wait. I am excited about this, and I hope you are too. We also have one more thing, and really this just involves seniors and people who have graduated, if you happen to be watching this. I'm going to be reaching out to you in the next week. I'm going to be looking for things like pictures and accomplishments that you've done in your time in school and what you're going on to next and all that sort of information. But I want you to know that I am waiting. I'm going to do this in probably mid-June, late June, as far as the Senior Recognition Sunday, because I would like to make a huge deal out of your graduation. You kind of got the raw end of the deal this year. You were stuck at home in quarantine, not able to be with your friends. You know what? I want to make a big deal out of you graduating. Not that we don't always make a big deal out of it, but this is a different year. This is a special year in that we were kind of forced into our homes. We were forced into this weird pandemic shelter-in-place situation. So I just want to make a big deal out of what you're going through, all right? I think you deserve it as much as anyone else. And anyway, so maybe that only affects Cara right now or anybody else who's watching that's graduating, but I'll be reaching out to help you understand what's going on. So to recap, I'll see you in church on Sunday, hopefully, if you're able. If not, we will continue to have online services in case you have people who are high risk in your family and you don't want to show up as a family, that sort of thing. We understand. But we are going to make it available for you to come and worship with us together on Sunday. Hope to see you there. And secondly, darn it, forgot the second thing I said. That's my brain for you. Anyway, third thing was the graduates. I'll be reaching out to you. Oh, second thing was we will not be meeting until July sometime, but we will be meeting in person for summer youth group. And for that, I am excited. Okay? So hopefully we'll have more information for you in the few days to come. Okay? Now, I have to talk about something. This is another issue that's popped up again and again recently about people deconverting from Christianity to atheism. Okay? I want to talk about it. I wonder if you recognize this guy. This is Marty Sampson. This is one of Hillsong's leads. Okay? He has recently come out, and I'm going to be flipping back and forth between screens, but he says, "To the Church of Jesus Christ, I forgive you, and I love you. I've got tears running down my face because it's so true. I adore you, Christians. I love you so much. That's all. It was amazing being one of you, but I'm not anymore." You recognize this guy. This is Joshua Harris. He's an author. He's written things like Why Church Matters, Dug Down Deep, and I Kissed Dating Goodbye. That's probably what he's most famous for, is that I Kissed Dating Goodbye. He said this on an Instagram post. "The information that was left out of our announcement is that I have undergone a massive shift in regard to my faith in Jesus. The popular phrase for this is deconstruction. The biblical phrase is falling away. By all measurements that I have for defining a Christian, I am not a Christian." Okay? How about this guy? This is John Steingard. He's the guitarist for Hawk Nelson. They're a Christian like punk style band from Canada. You probably heard their songs. Well, he comes out and says, I'm now finding that I no longer believe in God. The process of getting to that sentence has been several years in the making. It didn't happen overnight or all of a sudden. It's been more like pulling on the threads of a sweater and one day discovering there was no more sweater left. If you didn't know any of these guys, you know this guy. If you live in Wisconsin and you do not live under a rock, you know who Aaron Rodgers is. Aaron Rodgers recently said this about Christianity: I don't think it's very welcoming. Religion can be a crutch. It can be something that people have to make themselves feel better. And because it's sort of binary, it's us and them, it's saved and unsaved, it's heaven and hell, it's enlightened and heathen, it's holy and righteous and sinner and filthy. I think that makes a lot of people feel better about themselves. They say, oh, I've got Jesus and I'm saved and I'm going to heaven, and there's only 144,000 of us going, even though there's 7 billion people on the planet. I'm not crazy about his theology here. I don't know how you can believe in a God who wants to condemn most of the planet to a fiery hell. What type of loving, sensitive, omnipresent, omnipotent being wants to condemn most of his beautiful creation to a fiery hell at the end of all this? This is highly disturbing. These are like one after another in terms of like prominent Christian figures who are coming out publicly. This isn't even the end of the list. First thing I want to ask you guys is why? Why does this happen? Were they ever Christians to begin with? Is this something that over a period of time they believed it and now they don't believe it? There's not enough evidence, or what is it? I think there's two reasons. And I blame the church. Number one, the church has a tendency to isolate. All of these guys grew up in a Christian bubble. This is something that they've all admitted, that they grew up with these Christian values. They didn't have a conversion as someone who already had independent thoughts or anything like that. They grew up in this situation, as have many of you, and I'm not trying to scare you, but we have a tendency to isolate. People homeschool their kids because they don't want them to be affected by the world. The problem is when you send your kids out into the world finally, you encounter these opposing opinions, and they've had time to think through their position rather than just being force-fed an amount of theology that doesn't really make sense on the face of it without some deeper understandings of things that are going on. I think that the church has isolated to its detriment. We are not competing in the marketplace of ideas because we're not in the marketplace. That's part of the problem. And I think the second prong of this problem is that the church has failed to answer objections. As a result of our isolation, as a result of us huddling together instead of huddling to disperse and make an impact in the world, what has happened is we have failed to answer the objections of honest skeptics, of honest doubters. And therefore, we are not prepared to answer the objections of the professional doubters and skeptics. We have a tendency to oversimplify things in church. Well, evolution's just a theory. That's a dumb thing to say, because a scientific theory has much more weight behind it than me just saying, oh, I've got a theory about that. All right? They're saying that evolution is an established fact when they say evolutionary theory. How are we going to contend with this? Either we oversimplify it and say, it didn't evolve from no monkey. Well, that's not an answer. That's an emotional response to a serious question. And when in doubt, the phrase just have faith. Well, the word faith in the New Testament is never used to describe blind faith apart from reason, ever. So when we tell people just to have faith, or we oversimplify the problem, and we don't give people an opportunity to really ask their questions, we have failed to answer their questions. So number one, the church has isolated itself. Not all of us. I'm not blaming any of you, but I'm telling you how this has happened culturally. And because of our isolation, number two, the church has failed to answer any objections. We are not in the marketplace of ideas anymore. And as such, we have lost touch with what is going on. Our finger is off the pulse willingly, and we don't have answers to common objections that have been answered for thousands of years now. Okay, I want to remind you that God is the best explanation of the origin of the universe, of the fine-tuning of the universe, of objective moral values and duties, and the facts surrounding the resurrection. What I mean by number one is that God is the best explanation of the origin of the universe. The universe had a definite beginning. All things that begin to exist have an explanation for their existence. All things that began to exist have a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. Very simple logic, very airtight logic. What we know about that cause, and I'm just going to say he, even though I'll explain why in a minute, but I'm going to start by saying he, not it. What we know about the cause of the universe is that he himself was uncaused, that he was outside, transcendent of our reality, like an artist looking down on paper is not captured in that paper. This is the same way that the creator was looking down on his creation, not bound by it. That means he is not just uncaused, but spaceless, timeless, and immaterial, not made up of the stuff of the universe. He's apart from that. Not only that, but now there are personal qualities. Like, he must have been immensely intelligent. The reason I say he, and the reason I'm confident in saying he, is because whatever created the universe must have been a personal being with a mind, an immensely intelligent mind, if not all-knowing, dun dun dun, in order to be able to create, with a will, a desire, a drive to create. These are personal attributes and qualities, not to speak of the power it would have taken for a creator to create the known universe and everything that is in it. The second one is that God is the best explanation of the fine-tuning of the universe. At the moment of creation, there was an impossibly high degree of fine-tuning in order for intelligent life to exist anywhere. At that second, that split second, that millisecond, that even trillisecond, I made that up, I don't know if that's a thing, but that moment the universe began to exist, there must have been in place these fine-tuning parameters that are set to such a fragile degree that if they're dialed up the smallest amount or down the smallest amount, the universe fails to exist or fails to be home to intelligent life of any kind. There must be a fine-tuner creator in order for the universe to exist and for intelligent life of any kind to be possible. Not only is it unlikely that a universe would exist that would support life, it is impossible when you look at the numbers. Third thing is objective moral values and duties exist. Listen, you cannot have a law, something that you're beholden to, without something, and we can't, without an objective standard for that law. Let me just say that, meaning it has to be outside of us. Our laws are set in place, and we have an objective standard that we can look to find out whether or not what we did was illegal. If I'm speeding and a police officer pulls me over, he doesn't need to defend the fact that he pulled me over any further than the speed limit sign that was posted. There is an objective standard for my speed. In the same way, if I'm beholden to a moral value by duty that I am not supposed to murder, I am not supposed to steal things that don't belong to me, if there is in fact even one objectively right or wrong answer to those questions, then there must be a moral lawgiver at the heart of it. Otherwise, it dissolves. What do I owe a chance universe? What sort of moral values could I owe an accidental existence? It's absurd, logically speaking. that we would be holden to any sort of moral standard without an objective, outside of us, transcendent, objective moral value giver. And finally, the facts regarding the resurrection. We know the tomb of Jesus was empty. We know that Jesus was killed. We know that from secular historians. We know that from Jewish historians. We also know that from, obviously, Christian historians, like in the Gospel or in the New Testament at large. Okay? His tomb was empty. We know that again from history, not just Christian authorities, but we know that his body went missing. We also know that he appeared after his resurrection to hundreds of people at a time. This is rooted in historical fact, not just opinion. When the Apostle Paul wrote that you can go ask these 500 people who are living, most of whom are still alive at this moment, what he was saying was, go ask them if you don't believe me. But not only that, they were willing, the people who were eyewitnesses to the resurrection of Jesus, eyewitnesses to the resurrected Christ, were not only changed after his post-resurrection appearances to them, but they were willing to die for what they believed. And almost all of them did. Okay, God is the best explanation of the origin of the universe. God is the best explanation of the fine-tuning of the universe. He is the best explanation of moral values and duties that are objective. And he is the best explanation of the facts regarding the resurrection. In fact, I believe this answers all of the questions that these four men I just showed you have posed. These people who are deconstructed Christians, they're no longer Christ followers anymore. They cannot call themselves Christians. I appreciate their honesty, but I do not appreciate how they arrived at this conclusion. And I do believe it is the fault of the church that they were able to even choose to move away from the faith. There's a fact, too, that remains to be stated. Something about our Christian faith that is unlike any other religion. And it's this. God can be personally known by anyone right now if they are willing to trust him. Once they look at these facts, if they are moved by them, once they read the gospel and see in Jesus Christ the self-revelation of God, the willingness of God to face the problem of evil and suffering as an innocent person head on. All of these objections, they dissolve. And it's not just that they dissolve, but we find ourselves anchored into the one who can save us. And he can be personally known by anyone at this moment. Kids, you cannot be an effective minister of the gospel unless you learn apologetics. The days are over when you tell somebody something, they can go home and Google it. They can pull their phone out of their pocket at that moment and say, is this Christian talking nonsense? You cannot evangelize without apologetics. Christian, you also need to know the basic doctrines, the essential doctrines of the Christian faith. You need to know theology proper. You need to know Christology about Jesus. You need to know about the Holy Spirit, particularly not just the Trinity, but the deity of each person in the Trinity. You need to know that the Bible is the final word and authority for Christian faith and practice. Period. You need to know about anthropology, the fall of man, how we got to this situation where we're in now, what we're like. You need to know that there is salvation only in Jesus. And it is through faith. It is accessed through faith. It is completely gratuitous, the gift of God. What I'm saying up here is that God can be personally known. That's how. And you need to know that Jesus Christ will be coming back in bodily form to judge the living and the dead. You have to know what you're talking about now. And I hope at the very least you'll see that all of the teaching and things that we do at this church, all of the breaking down God's word and putting it in its context, is so that you will know what you believe and why you believe it, that you can make better decisions as to what those realities are, and that you, with the responsibility that you have on your shoulders to share the gospel with people and to give a reasoned answer, a reasoned defense for why you have hope, I hope that you'll see the necessity of understanding Christian doctrine. Christian doctrine is what we believe as Christ followers. Apologetics is why it's true. And we back up those truths because not just the Bible declares the glories of God, but the heavens themselves declare his handiwork. And that God is present in his creation at all times, and we can see his signature on our DNA, on the universe itself, on creation, on this earth, and it's the harmony that happens. Or we can see all of these good things and point to them. We can point to scientific fact. We should not be afraid to point to science. You need to equip yourselves. Number one, because you're going to doubt. You are going to question your faith. And yes, that is healthy. But what's unhealthy is when you never learn these things, you never encounter these truths, and you're able to, like the four men I just showed you, you're able to say that you've no faith left, that God doesn't even exist. God forbid that you would be allowed, by my lack of teaching the truth, or by Caleb and Dave's lack of teaching, and by Robin's lack of teaching, I know we are teaching the truth. I know, since every kid who's come through our Awana and our Discovery Land program knows the gospel. I know that by the time you get to middle school, you are learning apologetics. I know by the time you've gotten to high school, you've probably heard your fair share, and you might even be sick of me at this point. But it is essential for you to understand apologetics, at least a basic understanding. I'm not telling you to go, and you're not necessarily the next Ravi Zacharias or William Lane Craig. Not all of you are going to go on to be pastors and evangelists and leaders in the church necessarily. Many of you will, though, go on and have friends who are not Christians. Many of you will go on and have children who you hope will learn these things as well and be able to stand in the marketplace of ideas as reasonable followers of Jesus. And I'm just hoping that we start to see that these deconstruction stories they're not isolated. They've happened for thousands of years. People have grown up in Christian homes and decided, no, this isn't right. This isn't for me. God forbid that you not have access to the truth, that you not see these things. Okay. I got to get off my soapbox because I've been talking for a while. If you guys have any questions about any of these things, you can always call me. You can always text me. You can always email me. And hopefully in the future you can come and see me. That'll be cool. If you want to get together and have a discussion over this because texting just won't do, let's get together. Okay? If you are doubting your faith and you're scared of maybe some eventuality that may happen, or you're afraid that you might give up, you don't see sufficient reason to trust in Jesus, please reach out to me. Don't let yourself remain in that situation. I'll leave it at this. There was nothing that God was not willing to go through to be reconnected with you. When we say that God was motivated by love, what we're saying is that there was nothing he wasn't willing to do. He allowed himself in the incarnation of Jesus Christ to be ridiculed, to be mocked, to be insulted for years as a teacher. He allowed himself to be betrayed by one of his best friends. He allowed himself to be beaten brutally as an innocent man without even opening his mouth to defend himself. He allowed himself to be nailed by mortal men to a cross. He allowed himself to be hoisted up and tortured for hours so that you and I would sense the deep, abounding love of God for us. His desire to have you. Aaron Rodgers is wrong. Yes, it's binary. So many decisions in life are binary. We have a problem with binary, but we face it every day with no issue. Yes, it's binary. You're either a believer or you're not. But God does not want to send anyone to hell. It was not created for them. And we need to internalize these things. We need to know these things. We need to be sharp on many of these things in order for us to be witnesses of Jesus Christ in a world that is lost and going to hell and dying apart from him, and people who are raised in Christian homes and who are deconverting because they're not being taught the things that are so basic and so foundational to our faith. God forbid this happen to us. I love you, and I hope you will reach out and ask your questions. Questions don't get answered otherwise. It's in your hands now. I cannot wait to see you in person. I miss you, and I love you.